My son died 15 years ago in a devastating accident. I saw him in the casket, felt his cold skin, and threw dirt on his grave. But last night, at 3:27 in the morning, my cell phone rang. His name flashed on the screen, and when I answered, I heard his confused voice asking, "Mom, where am I? It's all dark in here. How can your heart keep beating when you hear the voice of someone you buried?" But before I continue, check if you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. My name is Claire, and for 15 years, I lived with a hole in my chest where my heart used to be. My son Matthew was only 17 years old when he died in a motorcycle accident. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy night and hit him head-on. In that moment, my knees buckled when the phone rang at 11:42 p.m. It was the hospital. "Mrs. Claire Matheson? Mother of Matthew Matheson?" That question already contained the entire answer I didn't want to hear. They say there's a mother's instinct that warns us when something terrible happens to our children. In that moment, even before the doctor finished her sentence, I already knew. It was as if an invisible thread that had always connected me to Matthew had been abruptly cut. The wake was a blur. I remember sitting next to the casket, unable to cry, observing my boy's face. He looked like he was sleeping, except for the grayish tone of his skin and the heavy makeup trying to hide the bruises. I spent the entire night caressing his ice-cold hand, waiting uselessly for his fingers to close around mine, like they did when he was little and needed protection. At the cemetery, I threw a white rose on the casket as they lowered it into the grave. The sound of the dirt hitting the wood was the moment reality finally hit me like a train. My son was dead. I would never hear his laugh or feel his hug again. I would never see him graduate, get married, or have children. All that remained of 17 years of life were photographs, clothes with his scent, and memories that would fade with time. Matthew's father couldn't handle it. 6 months after the funeral, David asked for a divorce. He said he couldn't look at me without remembering the son we lost. Maybe he was right. I couldn't look at him either without feeling like someone was missing between us. Our 20-year marriage ended with a signature on cold papers, another death to add to my collection of losses. While David moved on, remarried, and had other children, I stayed trapped in that grave. Matthew's room remained intact, a sanctuary frozen in time. His clothes were still in the closet, his worn-out sneakers next to the bed, his books on the shelf, on the desk, the math homework he never finished. I couldn't get rid of anything. Each object seemed to hold a piece of him that I refused to lose. Every Sunday, without fail, I visited his grave with fresh flowers. I cleaned the headstone, pulled the weeds, and talked to him as if he could hear me. I told him about the week, the little things that happened, the news of the world. Sometimes I brought a book and read aloud, because Matthew always liked it when I read to him before bed. "You should move on," people told me, as if it were simple to leave behind the son who grew inside my womb, as if there were a deadline for a mother's grief. I tried therapy, support groups, antidepressants. Nothing healed that wound. I just learned to live with the pain, to carry it like a constant companion. For 15 years, I kept Matthew's cell phone number active. I paid the bill every month, just so I could call from time to time and listen to the voicemail with his teenage voice. "Hey, you've reached Matthew. Leave a message, and I'll call you back. Thanks." Those few seconds of audio were like a portal to a world where he still existed, where his voice still vibrated in the air. Maybe it was madness, but it was my way of keeping him alive. People moved on. His friends graduated, got married, and had children. The world kept spinning without Matthew in it. I kept breathing, working as an elementary school teacher, existing in a limbo between life and death. I wasn't really alive, just existing on inertia, filling the days until I could be reunited with my son again. That's when it happened. A Wednesday, August 14th, 15 years after the accident. It was exactly 3:27 in the morning when my cell phone rang, pulling me from a restless sleep. In the darkness of the room, the screen's glow lit up the name I never expected to see. Matthew. No, not Matthew, do not answer, which is what I had renamed the contact years ago when I would sometimes call the number just to hear the voicemail. It was just Matthew, as if someone had restored the original contact. My heart hammered, beating against my ribs like a caged animal. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. It couldn't be real. It had to be a dream, a mistake, some technical glitch. Or maybe my sanity had finally abandoned me altogether, after years of living with the ghost of loss. The phone kept ringing, relentless. 5, 6 rings. On the 7th, something inside me broke. I answered. For several seconds, I only heard breathing slow, unsure, human. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice failing. More silence. And then, "Mom?" The voice was his. There was no mistaking it. The same intonation, the same slight drawl when he said Mom. "Mom, where am I?" It's all dark in here. The air froze in my lungs. The walls of the room seemed to contract around me. This couldn't be happening. "Matthew?" It was all I could say, as my entire body trembled. "Yeah, it's me." "Me? I don't know where I am. I can't see anything. I'm cold. What happened to me?" I turned on the bedside lamp with trembling fingers, as if the light could dispel this madness. My mind was racing in 1,000 different directions. It could be a cruel joke, someone who had stolen his number, an auditory hallucination caused by medication and sleepless nights. But that voice, I would recognize that voice anywhere. "Matthew, is it really you?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "How? How is this possible?" "I don't know, Mom." His voice sounded distant, confused. "I remember the accident. I remember the rain, the car's headlights coming toward me. Then, nothing, just darkness. And now I'm here, but I don't know where here is. I can't see anything. I feel like I'm trapped." A sob escaped my throat. I jumped out of bed, stumbling across the room, holding the phone as if it were a lifeline. "Matthew, you died. 15 years ago. I buried you." Silence on the other end, a silence so dense I could almost touch it. "No, Mom, I can't be dead. I'm talking to you. I'm thinking. I'm feeling. I just can't move. Everything is tight around me." I felt a chill run down my spine. Tight, like a coffin. My God, could it be possible? A mistake at the hospital? Someone declared dead prematurely? Stories of people buried alive flooded my mind in a whirlwind of horror. But no, it was impossible. I saw him at the wake. I touched his cold skin. He was buried 15 years ago. He couldn't be alive after all this time. "Where are you now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you see around you?" "Nothing. It's completely dark. I feel wood. I'm lying on something hard. There's a strange smell, like dirt and mold. Mom, I'm scared." My blood ran cold. He was describing a casket. How could he know that? How could he be conscious after 15 years? "Calm down, my son." The words came out automatically, a mother's instinct overriding the panic. "I'm going to help you. Just tell me how I can find you." "I don't know. I just remember the accident and then waking up here." "Mom, how long did you say it's been?" 15 years, Matthew." My voice cracked. You died in 2010. I heard his breathing quicken, turning into sobs of despair. "It can't be. It can't. I'm 17. How could I have lost 15 years of my life?" I grabbed the dresser to keep from falling. The situation was absurd, impossible, and yet it was happening. My son's voice, my dead son's voice, was coming through the phone with the same clarity as when he was alive. "Matthew, I'm going to find you, okay? I'll find a way." I didn't even believe what I was saying, but the desperation in his voice pushed me to promise anything. "Just, don't hang up. Please don't hang up. The battery is running out, Mom." The panic was palpable in his voice. "The phone is flashing. I don't want to be alone in here." "Wait, Matthew. How are you calling me? Where did you get a phone?" The questions exploded in my mind, searching for some logic in this madness. It was in my pocket, my old cell phone. I don't know how it still works, but the screen says the battery is almost dead. His old cell phone, the same one that was buried with him, a request he made in this will he wrote when he was 16, during a phase when he was obsessed with his own mortality. At the time, we thought it was a teenage whim, but we respected his wish. Matthew, listen to me. I tried to organize my chaotic thoughts. Do you remember Willow Creek Cemetery, outside Chicago? That's where we buried you, in the East Wing, near the Great Oak. If you're in the casket, that's where you are. Cemetery? His voice trembled. Am I really dead? I don't know anymore, son. I don't know what's happening, but I'm heading there right now. Mom, the battery is almost. His voice began to cut out. Scared. Please help me. Matthew, hold on. I'm on my way. I yelled into the phone, but I only heard the call-ended signal. He had hung up, or the battery had died. Trembling, I tried calling his number back. Nothing. Just the automated message saying the number didn't exist, as if those brief minutes of conversation had never happened. I didn't stop to think about the logic or the impossibility of the situation. I threw a coat on over my pajamas, grabbed the car keys, and ran to the garage. It was almost 4 a.m. as I drove like a maniac through the deserted streets of my Chicago suburb. Running red lights, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. The cemetery would be closed at this hour, but I knew the night watchman, Art. Over years of Sunday visits, we had built a quiet friendship. He always let me stay a few minutes past closing time when I lost track of time talking to Matthew's grave. I parked haphazardly at the entrance and ran to the gatehouse. Art was asleep in a chair, but he woke with a start at my desperate pounding on the glass. Claire? What happened? It's 4 a.m. I need to get in, Art. Now. It's urgent. It's about my son. He looked at me as if I had lost my mind. And maybe I had. Your boy? But, Claire, his. I know it sounds crazy, I interrupted, but I need to go to his grave now. Please. Something in my desperate gaze must have convinced him, because he nodded, grabbed a set of keys and a flashlight. I'll go with you. It's not safe to walk around here alone at this hour. Oh, I didn't have time to thank him. I was already running down the stone path I knew so well, lit only by the light of the waning moon. Art was right behind me, panting, trying to keep up with my frantic pace. 15 years of visiting the same spot creates a precise mental map. Even in the dark, I could find the way to Matthew's grave. Left at the Almeida family mausoleum, right at the angel statue, follow the cypress path to the great oak. And there, under the shadow of the ancient tree, was the marble headstone with his name, Matthew Ryan Matheson, 1993 to 2010. Beloved son, forever in our hearts. I fell to my knees in front of the grave, the world spinning around me. What did I expect to find? What was I looking for? A call from beyond the grave didn't mean I could dig him up and find him alive. 15 years is too long. Even if there had been some mistake, even if he had been buried alive, a thought that sent shivers of horror through me, there would be no way to survive that long underground. Claire. Art approached, concerned. Are you all right? I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the ground over the grave. Firm, undisturbed earth, covered by a carpet of well-tended grass that I had planted myself years ago. No sign of disturbance, nothing to indicate that anyone or anything had come out of there. He called me. Art, I murmured, without looking away from the grave. My Matthew called me, less than half an hour ago. The watchman put his hand on my shoulder, his voice gentle. Claire, you had a nightmare. It happens when we lose someone we love. It wasn't a dream, I shouted, shrugging off his hand. I was awake. I answered the phone. It was his voice. I started scratching at the grass with my nails, trying to dig, to tear the earth away with my bare hands. It was madness, I knew. A grave is almost 6 feet deep. I could never reach the casket this way. But reason had abandoned me the moment I heard my son's voice on the phone. Claire, please. Art grabbed my wrists, stopping me from continuing that futile attempt. You're going to hurt yourself. This isn't. It's not normal. And I collapsed in tears, smudging my face with the dirt from my hands. He said it's dark. He said he's trapped. He's scared, Art. I sobbed uncontrollably. How can I leave him like this? How? The watchman helped me up, supporting me as I trembled. I'm taking you home. You're very upset. Tomorrow everything will look different. But I knew it wouldn't. Nothing would be the same after that call. If I couldn't dig up my son with my own hands, I needed to find another way to understand what was happening. His cell phone, I muttered as Art guided me out of the cemetery. It was with him in the casket. How could it work after so many years? How could it have a battery? How could it have a signal? The watchman didn't answer. He probably thought I was delirious. And maybe I was. Maybe loneliness and grief had finally corroded what was left of my sanity. And I was hallucinating, creating an alternate reality where my son could still contact me somehow. I drove home in a daze, my eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Art insisted on following me in his car until he was sure I had gotten home safely. I promised him I would try to rest, that I would call my doctor in the morning. White lies to calm a good man who was worried about me. As soon as I closed the door, I ran to the phone and tried calling Matthew's number again. Nothing. The same message that the number didn't exist. I tried 10, 20 more times, always with the same result. I sat in the kitchen, shaking, trying to gather my thoughts. I needed help. I needed someone who would believe me, or at least pretend to believe me while I figured out what was happening. David, Matthew's father. If there was anyone who might understand, it would be him. Even with our strained relationship after the divorce, we shared the love for our son. I looked at the clock, 5:12 in the morning. Too early for a normal call, but this had stopped being a normal situation. I dialed his number, which I still knew by heart even after all these years. After 4 rings, I heard his sleepy voice. "Claire, is that you? Did something happen?" "David," my voice trembled. "I need to tell you something. It's going to sound crazy, but I need you to listen." I told him everything. The call, Matthew's voice, the phone in the casket, my desperate trip to the cemetery. I expected him to interrupt me, to call me crazy, to suggest I check into a psychiatric hospital. But David just listened in silence, breathing heavily on the other end of the line. When I finished, there was a long moment of silence. "Do you believe me?" I finally asked, my voice small and insecure. "I don't know what to believe, Claire." His voice sounded strangely controlled. "But I know you wouldn't make something like this up. Not about Matthew. I need your help. I need to understand what's happening." "What do you want to do?" "Exhume the body." The words came out before I could think. "I need to be sure, David. I need to see what's down there." More silence. Then, "You know that's nearly impossible, right? We need a court order. It will take time. And even if we get it, Claire, 15 years. There won't be much to see. I know, but I have to try. If there's the slightest chance that some mistake was made, I'll be there in an hour," he said, surprising me. "We'll talk in person." I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of the kitchen, motionless, trying to process everything that had happened in those surreal early hours. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a vivid dream, that I had fallen asleep on the couch and my mind had played a cruel trick on me. But I knew it wasn't true. The call had been real. The voice was Matthew's. My son was trying to contact me from somewhere between life and death. David arrived in less than an hour, his graying hair disheveled, deep dark circles under his eyes. When I opened the door, I saw the same man who had been my husband for 20 years, now older, with deeper lines. But his eyes had the same look Matthew's eyes, which he had inherited from his father. "You look terrible," he said, trying to ease the tension with humor. "You're not at your best either," I replied, letting him in. We sat in the living room, the silence heavy between us. It had been years since we were like this, face to face, alone. Our rare meetings after the divorce always took place in public, often with his new wife and children present. "Tell me again, every detail," he asked, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I repeated the whole story, adding details I had forgotten the first time. The exact tone of Matthew's voice, his short breaths, the description of the darkness and the tight space. "The cell phone," David interrupted. "You said he has the cell phone in the casket?" "Yes. Don't you remember? It was one of the requests in his will." David nodded slowly. "I remember. That strange phase when he wrote what he wanted if he died. We thought it was just a teenage phase. We didn't imagine that he would actually die so young, I finished. An old Nokia, wasn't it? One of those indestructible ones. Yes, I agreed, remembering the blue phone Matthew loved. But still, David, 15 years underground. The battery wouldn't last that long. And how would it get a signal down there? It doesn't make sense, he agreed. Unless. Unless what? Unless it's not really coming from the grave. David stood up, pacing the living room restlessly. Claire, have you considered it could be something else? Someone playing a trick on you, maybe? Someone who knows about the phone buried with him? I shook my head vehemently. No, David. It was his voice. No one could imitate it like that. And who would be that cruel? David ran his hand through his graying hair, a gesture that reminded me so much of Matthew that I felt a pang in my chest. So, what are you suggesting? That our son somehow managed to call you from inside the casket 15 years after he died? That's... He paused, choosing his words. Claire, you need to consider other possibilities. Maybe you need help. You think I'm crazy? It wasn't a question. I didn't say that. He sat down again, taking my hands in his, an intimate gesture we hadn't shared in years. I'm saying grief does strange things to the mind. You never really got over his death. You never moved on. I pulled my hands away, moving back. Like you moved on, with your perfect new wife and your perfect new children? That's not fair, Claire. His voice hardened. I lost my son too. I suffered too. I just chose to deal with it differently. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. Fighting with David wouldn't help me find answers. And deep down, I knew he was right. It was an absurd, impossible story. Any rational person would be skeptical. I'm going to try calling him again, I said, grabbing the phone. In front of you, you'll see. I dialed Matthew's number one more time, putting it on speaker. The automated message rang out loud and clear. The number you have dialed does not exist. See? David said gently. Claire, I. The phone in my hand began to vibrate, cutting him off. On the screen, Matthew's name flashed again. It's him, I shouted, almost dropping the device. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? David's face went pale. He was seeing it. There was no denying it. With trembling hands, I answered the call and put it on speaker. Matthew? I called, my voice barely coming out. Mom. His voice sounded distant, choppy, as if the connection was bad. Mom, I managed to charge the phone a bit. There's a light now. David brought his hand to his mouth, his eyes wide with shock. He was hearing the same voice I was. Matthew, I called, louder. Your father is here with me. We're on speakerphone. Dad? His voice seemed more alert. Dad? Is that you? David swallowed, tears in his eyes. Yes, son, it's me. What's happening to me? Why are you saying I'm dead? I remember the accident, but then everything is confusing. I looked at David, not knowing what to say. How do you explain to someone that they've been dead for 15 years? Matthew, David took the lead, his voice thick with emotion. You said there's a light now. What are you seeing? There's a kind of flashlight here. It was in my coat pocket with the cell phone. I don't know how it still works, but I can see a little now. I'm in a wooden box. It's small. I can barely move. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. He was describing the casket. What else do you see? David asked, gripping my hand tightly. There's a cloth lining, white, and I'm wearing. Wait, these aren't my clothes. It's a suit. I never had a suit like this. The burial clothes. The suit we bought for him to be buried in. David and I exchanged horrified glances. Matthew, my voice trembled. Try to push the lid. See if you can open it. We heard sounds of effort. Grunts. I can't. It's too heavy. It feels like there's something on top. Dirt, maybe? David took the phone from my hand, bringing it closer to his face. Matthew, listen to me. We need to understand what's happening. How long have you been conscious in there? I don't know. His voice sounded frustrated. It's like I just woke up from a long, confusing dream. I remember parts of my life, of school, of friends, of you two, but there are a lot of blurry things. It's like I slept for a very long time. And the accident? What do you remember? It was raining. Coming back from Lauren's house, the bike skidded on the turn. I saw the headlights coming at me. So fast. Then, pain. A lot of pain. And then, nothing. Until I woke up here, in the dark. The description matched exactly what we knew of the accident. The police reports. The witness testimonies. Matthew, I called, taking the phone back. What's the last date you remember? March 10th, 2010. A Wednesday. I had a physics exam the next day. David and I looked at each other again. March 10th, 2010. The day of the accident. Exactly 15 years ago. And do you remember? I hesitated, not knowing how to ask. Do you remember dying? Silence on the other end. Just his ragged breathing. I don't know. His voice was almost a whisper now. I remember the pain, then a feeling of floating. Like I was being pulled upward. Bright lights. Voices I didn't recognize. And then, darkness. Until I woke up here. Mom, Dad, am I really dead? How do you answer that? How do you tell your own son that yes, he died, was mourned, cried over, buried? Matthew, David took over, saving me from answering. Something very strange is happening. We need to investigate. Do you think you can stay in touch with us? How much battery does the phone have left? About 30%, I think. I don't know how it's still working after. How long did you say? 15 years, I replied, my voice failing. Today is 2025, son. My God. He seemed to be trying to absorb the information. So I would be 32 years old now? It's so weird to think about. It feels like yesterday I was in high school. For him, it really had been. Time had stopped at the moment of the impact that took his life. 15 years, in the blink of an eye. Matthew, David said, taking a more practical tone. We need to find a way to verify all this. To understand what's happening, you said you have a flashlight. Can you look around? See if there's anything else with you in the casket? I'll try. We heard sounds of movement, restricted by the small space. There are some dried flowers. A rosary. An envelope? An envelope? I asked, surprised. What kind of envelope? It looks like a letter. It has my name written on it. The handwriting is yours, Mom. The letter. I had completely forgotten. The night before the funeral, I wrote a farewell letter to Matthew and asked them to put it in the casket with him. A final message for my son. Words I didn't get a chance to say while he was alive. Can you open it? I asked, remembering the intimate, painful content of that letter written in the depths of despair. Yes, I'm opening it. My dearest Matthew, he began to read aloud. If there is a world beyond this one, I know you are reading these words and feeling all the love your mom has for you. He continued reading, and every word was like a knife piercing my heart. Words written 15 years ago, on a night of unbearable pain, now coming back to me in the voice of the very son they were addressed to. And one day, when my time comes, we will be together again. Until then, I will love you and miss you with every breath. Your mom forever. His voice cracked as he finished reading. You wrote this for me. Yes, I confirmed, tears streaming freely down my face, the night before your funeral. So it's true. Matthew's voice sounded defeated. I'm really dead, buried. But then, how am I conscious? How am I talking to you? It was the question that tormented us all, a question for which we had no answer. I don't know, son, David replied, putting his arm around my shoulders in a protective gesture that took me by surprise. But we're going to find out. I promise you, we're not going to leave you alone in this. The battery is running out again, Matthew said, his voice suddenly alarmed. I only have 10% now. It's going to turn off soon. Matthew, listen, I spoke quickly. We're going to try to figure out what's happening. We're going to find a way to help you. Just don't despair, okay? We're here. We're going to find you, somehow. I'm scared, Mom, he whispered, suddenly sounding like the little boy who used to run to my bed during thunderstorms. I'm scared of being alone in the dark when the battery dies. I'm scared you won't be able to find me. We will find you, I promised, although I had no idea how to keep that promise. Just hold on. Try to save the battery. Only call if it's very important, okay? Okay, he agreed, his voice weak. Dad, Mom, I love you. We love you too, son, we replied in unison, just like in the old days when he was a boy and we would tuck him in. The call ended abruptly. The cell phone screen went back to normal, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the tears in David's eyes confirmed that he had heard it too. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't madness. Somehow, our son was contacting us from beyond the grave. What do we do now? I asked, drying my tears on the back of my hand. David got up, pacing the living room, the analytical engineer's brain clearly working at full speed. We need to be methodical. First, establish the facts. What do we know for sure? We know Matthew died 15 years ago. We know we buried him. We know that, somehow, he is conscious and managed to call us. And what does that mean? David rubbed his face, suddenly looking much older. It's impossible for him to be alive in the casket, Claire, after 15 years. I know. I shuddered at the thought of the implications. So what? A ghost? A lost soul? Some kind of residual consciousness? David had always been the more skeptical of us, a man of science who only believed in what he could see and touch. Seeing him now, considering supernatural possibilities, showed how much that call had affected him. I don't know, but I know we need help. He grabbed his phone. I'm calling Patrick. Patrick Kennedy. David's best friend since college. A forensic pathologist who worked at the city morgue. Someone who would understand the scientific aspects of the situation. Do you think it's a good idea to involve more people? I questioned nervously. What if he thinks we're crazy? Patrick knows me well enough to know I wouldn't make something like this up. David was already dialing. We need someone who understands the scientific part. And also, we're also going to need some kind of authorization to exhume the body. The word exhumation made my stomach churn. The idea of digging up Matthew, of seeing what was left of him after 15 years, was too disturbing. Do you really think we should do that? I asked, my voice low. David looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen in years. If it were you in his place, trapped somewhere between life and death, wouldn't you want us to do everything in our power to help you? He was right. If there was any chance of helping our son, we had to try, no matter how disturbing the idea. Patrick called back shortly after, promising to immediately start the process for the exhumation authorization. David decided to stay with me, setting himself up on the living room sofa. It was strange to have him back in the house we shared for so many years, the house where we raised our son, the house he left when the grief became unbearable. Night fell, bringing with it a darkness that seemed denser, more oppressive than usual. Neither of us could sleep. We stayed in the living room, David on the sofa, me in the armchair, the heavy silence between us, broken only by the occasional noise of the city outside. You still keep his things, don't you? David asked suddenly, looking toward the hallway that led to Matthew's room. Yes, I admitted. I haven't changed anything. He nodded, without judgment. Can I see? I led him down the hallway to the room that had remained untouched for 15 years. I opened the door slowly, as if afraid of waking someone. The smell of dust and frozen time greeted us. The curtains were drawn, but I turned on the light, revealing the shrine I had built for my son. The bed still made with the Batman blanket he loved, even though it was kid stuff for a 17-year-old. The desk with schoolbooks piled up, an unfinished math homework in the open notebook, rock band posters on the walls, a pair of worn-out sneakers by the bed, the guitar in the corner, covered in dust, silenced by time. David stood in the doorway, taking it all in. I saw his hands tremble slightly. You accused me of moving on too fast, he said softly. Maybe it's because I couldn't do this. I couldn't preserve the memories like you did. He walked slowly around the room, touching the objects with reverence. He stopped in front of the trophy shelf swimming, chess, science fairs. Matthew was always a brilliant boy, destined for great things. A life abruptly cut short before it could fully bloom. Look at this. David pulled a small black notebook from a half-open desk drawer. His journal. My heart sped up. I never had the courage to read it. Me neither. He held the notebook carefully, as if it were a precious artifact. Maybe we should, now. Maybe there's something in here that can help us understand. We sat on Matthew's bed, side by side, the journal between us. With trembling fingers, David opened to the first page. January 10th, 2010, he read aloud. I had that dream again, the one about the accident. So real I woke up in a cold sweat. In the dream, I'm riding my motorcycle in the rain. I see the headlights approaching. I feel the impact. Then, I'm floating above it all, watching my own broken body on the asphalt. It's terrifying, but also weirdly peaceful. We exchanged alarmed glances. The description of the dream matched exactly the accident that would take his life 2 months later. A shiver ran down my spine. David continued reading, turning the pages carefully. The entries described the daily life of a normal teenager. Exams, friends, the girl he liked, fights with his parents. But there was something else, something disturbing that repeated in several entries. Dreams about his own death. Always the same scenario, always the same feeling of watching from the outside. March 1st, 2010, David read, his voice thick. Just 10 days before the accident, the dream got more intense. This time I saw the funeral. I saw Mom crying over my casket. I saw Dad trying to be strong, but breaking down when he thought no one was watching. I saw my friends standing in a circle, not knowing what to say. It's so vivid, I'm starting to wonder if they're really dreams or something else. Premonitions? Warnings? I'm scared, but also curious. My breath hitched. Matthew had dreamed of his own death, of his own funeral, weeks before it happened. He knew, I murmured, stunned. Somehow, he knew what was going to happen. David turned to the last entry. It was from March 10th, 2010, the day of the accident. Today is the day. I don't know how I'm so sure, but I am. Last night's dream was so real, I can still feel the impact, the metal tearing my skin, the bones breaking. I should be terrified, but strangely, I'm not. It's like it's inevitable, like it's destined. If something happens to me today, I want Mom and Dad to know I love them more than anything. And I also want them to know that it's not going to be the end. Somehow, I'm going to find a way back to them. I'm going to find a way to say I'm okay, that I've just changed form. P.S. If I'm right, please, bury my cell phone with me. It might sound weird, but I have a feeling I'm going to need it. The journal fell from David's hands. The silence that followed was dense, heavy, with impossible implications. He knew, I repeated, my voice barely audible. They weren't just dreams. He saw the future. And he knew that somehow, one day, he was going to contact us. The cell phone? David murmured. He asked to be buried with the cell phone because he knew he was going to use it to communicate with us. The understanding of what was happening was beginning to form in our minds, still hazy, still incomplete, but with more defined outlines. Matthew, somehow, had foreseen his own death. He had prepared for it, and now, 15 years later, he was fulfilling his promise to find a way back to us. As if responding to our thoughts, my cell phone rang. Matthew's name flashed on the screen. We answered together, David leaning in to listen. Matthew? I called, my heart pounding. Mom, Dad. His voice sounded different now, firmer, more confident. You're in my room, right? You just read my journal. I froze in shock. How? How do you know that? I can see you, he replied calmly. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I'm in two places at once. I'm still here, in the dark, but I can also observe, like in the dreams I used to have. David took the phone, his eyes wide with shock. Matthew, are you saying you can see us now, at this moment? Yes, Mom is wearing that blue blouse I gave her for Mother's Day all those years ago. You're holding my state championship swimming trophy. It was true. David had just picked up the trophy from the shelf as we were talking. There was no way Matthew could know that unless he could really see us. My God, David whispered. This is terrifying, I know, Matthew completed. It is for me too. I'm learning to control this. At first, it was just darkness, but now, it's like I can project my consciousness outward, see things, hear things. Can you see other people besides us? I asked, trying to understand the scope of this impossible ability. Yes, I can see Patrick at the police station right now, filling out forms. They're processing the exhumation, aren't they? A chill ran down my spine. How did he know about Patrick? How did he know about the exhumation? Matthew, what's happening to you? David asked, his voice trembling. Are you dead? Alive? What? There was a pause before the answer. I don't know exactly. My body is here, but it's not alive in the normal sense. It's preserved somehow, like time has stopped for it. But my consciousness is elsewhere. In many places, at the same time. This is impossible, David muttered, the rational engineer in him fighting against the supernatural evidence. A lot of things are impossible until they happen, Matthew replied. Mom always used to say that. Remember? It was true. It was one of my favorite phrases when Matthew was a child and said something was impossible. Son, I asked, trying to make sense of it all. Why now? Why wait 15 years to contact us? I didn't wait. His voice sounded almost surprised. For me, it was like waking up from a long sleep. I didn't realize so much time had passed. But now that I'm awake, I can feel time differently. I can see what I lost. I can see how you both suffered, and I can see that maybe I can come back. Come back? David and I spoke in unison. What does that mean? I'm not sure, Matthew admitted. But I know I need you to open the grave. I need you to get me out of here. There's something that needs to be done. Something I can't explain yet. Like an instinct. David and I looked at each other, scared and hopeful at the same time. The idea of Matthew coming back, somehow, was as impossible as it was wonderful. We're trying, son, David assured him. Patrick is handling the paperwork for the exhumation, but it could take days, maybe a week. That's too late, Matthew's voice replied, urgent. The connection is strengthening, but it's temporary. I feel like there's a window of opportunity. If we miss it, I might not be able to come back. How much time do we have? I asked, my desperation growing. 3 days, maybe less. It's hard to explain, but I can feel it. Like a tide rising and falling. I'm at the peak now, but it will start to recede soon. David stood up, determined. I'm going to talk to Patrick. We'll speed up the process. If we can't get the authorization in time. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood what he meant. We would do whatever it takes, legal or not. There's something else, Matthew continued, his voice suddenly serious. I'm not alone here. There are others like me. People trapped between worlds. Some are confused, scared. Others are angry. Not all of them have good intentions. A chill ran down my back. What do you mean? Some want to come back for the wrong reasons. Vengeance, obsession, power. If they find a way back, like I'm trying to do, it would be dangerous. David finished, his face grim. Very. I'm trying to hold them back, block the path, but I'm getting tired. I don't know how much longer I can. The implication was clear and terrible. Our son wasn't just trying to find a way back to us. He was serving as some kind of guardian, preventing other spirits with dark intentions from escaping. How can we help? I asked, determination replacing fear. Just get me out of there, he replied. The rest, I can try to handle when we're reunited, somehow. The call started to fail, Matthew's voice breaking up with static. I'm losing connection. Battery dying. Matthew! I yelled into the phone. Hold on. We're coming for you. I know you will. His voice was just a whisper now. I love you so much. And then, silence. The call had dropped. David was already on his phone, calling Patrick. He spoke quickly, urgently, explaining the need to speed up the process. I watched him, a new determination growing inside me. If the bureaucracy didn't work in time, we would take matters into our own hands. The next 24 hours were a race against time. Patrick used all his influence at the morgue and the police department to expedite the authorization. David mobilized former work colleagues, some with political connections. I stayed at home, waiting for new calls from Matthew, the phone always within reach, the volume on high. He didn't call again that day, or the next. The anxiety grew with every passing hour. Patrick assured us the authorization would be ready in 48 hours. Fast by bureaucratic standards, but still, potentially too late according to Matthew's warning. On the morning of the third day, David and Patrick arrived with news. "The authorization comes through this afternoon," Patrick explained, his face tired from not sleeping for days. "They've scheduled the exhumation for tomorrow morning." "That's too late," I replied, remembering Matthew's warning. He said 3 days at most. Today is the third day. David and Patrick exchanged significant looks. "We have a backup plan." David spoke in a low voice, as if afraid of being overheard. "It's not legal, but—" "The cemetery watchman," Patrick completed. "Art. He's agreed to let us in tonight, after closing. He'll bring the necessary equipment. We'll do everything discreetly." "And after?" I asked. "Even if we manage to open the casket, what will we do?" "We can't just take whatever we find there. One step at a time," David replied. "First, we need to see what's in there. Understand what Matthew meant by coming back." We spent the day in a state of contained anxiety, preparing for the night. Patrick brought dark clothes for everyone, flashlights, tools. David prepared a car with fake documents in case we were stopped by the police. I packed food, water, blankets, acting more out of maternal instinct than logic. At 10 o'clock at night, the cemetery had already been closed for an hour. We drove there in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Art was waiting for us at the back gate, his face grim but determined. "I have everything ready," he said quietly. "The tools are hidden near the grave. No one comes here at this hour, but we need to be quick and quiet." The cemetery at night was a completely different place. Shadows seemed to move between the tombstones, and the silence was broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the rustle of leaves in the wind. We followed Art along side paths, avoiding the main trails where the moonlight made us more visible. Matthew's grave, under the great oak, seemed to be waiting for us. Next to it, hidden under bushes, was a small backhoe, the type used for minor work in restricted spaces. "I borrowed it from the maintenance crew," Art explained. "It will save us hours of manual labor." David and Patrick immediately got to work, operating the small machine carefully to minimize noise. The ground over Matthew's grave was compact after 15 years, but the machine cut through it with surprising efficiency. I stood guard, my eyes peeled for any movement, my ears sharp for any sound that didn't belong to the night. My cell phone was in my pocket, silent but ready for any new contact from Matthew. After almost an hour of work, the backhoe hit something solid. The sound of the machine against wood made my heart leap. "The casket." Shutting down the machine, David announced in a whisper, "Now we need to work with our hands." The 3 men grabbed manual shovels and began to carefully clear the dirt from around the casket, revealing its outlines. I moved closer, unable to stay away at this crucial moment. The dark wood casket still looked in good condition, protected by the dry earth. "It's a good casket," Art murmured. "Treated wood, sealed against moisture. Explains why it's so well preserved." When they finally cleared enough dirt to expose the entire lid, David and Patrick positioned themselves on either side. "Ready?" they asked each of us. I nodded, unable to speak. Patrick took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever we might find. Art made the sign of the cross. Together, the 2 men lifted the casket lid. The smell that escaped was not the decomposition we feared, but a strange, almost medicinal smell. A soft, bluish light emanated from within, illuminating the men's surprised faces. I pushed between them to see. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight that awaited me. Matthew was there, his body perfectly preserved as if he had been buried yesterday. There were no signs of decay, no sign of the 15 years that had passed. His face looked asleep, serene. He was wearing the same dark suit from the funeral, his hands crossed over his chest. Underneath them, glowing with that strange bluish light, was his old cell phone. My God, Patrick murmured, the scientist in him struggling to comprehend the impossibility before his eyes. This can't be real. There should only be bones. David reached out a trembling hand, touching our son's face. He's warm. Not cold like a corpse, or hot like a living person. Just warm. The sight was so surreal, so beyond any known logic or science, that for a moment none of us could move. It was as if time had been suspended inside that casket, preserving Matthew exactly as he was on the day of his funeral. Slowly, I moved forward and touched his face. The skin was firm, elastic, like that of a living person. But there was no pulse, no visible breathing, just that strange intermediate temperature. Neither alive nor dead. The cell phone, I pointed. It's glowing. It was true. The small blue Nokia under his hands was emitting that supernatural light that illuminated the inside of the casket. As I leaned in to touch it, the screen lit up on its own, displaying a message. Get me out of here. Take me home. I have little time. We didn't hesitate. David and Patrick, with Art's help, carefully removed Matthew's body from the casket. It was lighter than it should be, as if the matter of his body had been partially replaced by something less dense, less physical. Together, we wrapped Matthew in the blanket I had brought and carried him back to the car. The cell phone in his hand continued to glow, now pulsing like a heart, the rhythm accelerating as we moved away from the cemetery. No one spoke during the drive. What could we say in the face of something so far beyond our understanding? We decided to take him to my house, the house where he grew up, the last place he lived. It seemed right. Art and Patrick helped us carry him inside, placing him gently on his own bed, in the room that had remained untouched for 15 years. I've never seen anything like this in my entire career, Patrick murmured, still examining Matthew's motionless body. No conventional vital signs, but also no rigor mortis or any sign of decomposition. It's as if he's in a completely different state of matter. The cell phone in Matthew's hand flashed again, displaying a new message. Water, sunlight, music. We looked at each other, confused, until I understood. He's telling us what he needs. I quickly brought a glass of water and pressed it to his lips. To our surprise, he seemed to absorb the liquid, although there was no movement in his throat. I opened the curtains, allowing the moonlight to bathe his face. David found the old radio on the nightstand and turned it on to a station playing classical music, the kind Matthew always liked. The cell phone flashed again. Thank you. Now I need to rest. Tomorrow. Patrick and Art left shortly after, promising to return in the morning. Both swore to keep secret what they had witnessed. David and I remained in Matthew's room, one on each side of the bed, watching our son in his impossible state, neither alive nor dead. What's going to happen now? I whispered, holding Matthew's inert but strangely warm hand. David shook his head. I don't know. We're in uncharted territory. But he asked to be brought home, and we did it. Now we need to trust him. We spent the night in a silent vigil. At some point, I fell asleep in the chair next to the bed. I dreamed of Matthew, not the teenager I had lost, but a grown man, as he would have been if he had lived. In the dream, he smiled and said, "It's almost time, Mom. Just a little longer." I woke at dawn to a strange humming sound filling the room. David had also woken up, looking around, confused. The source of the sound was Matthew's cell phone, which was now glowing intensely, the bluish light pulsing at an increasingly rapid rhythm. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Matthew's body began to change. The skin, which previously had a deathly pallor, gained color. The fingers, previously rigid, twitched slightly. The eyes, closed for 15 years, trembled under his eyelids as if in a deep dream. "David," I whispered, grabbing his hand. "Something is happening." The humming intensified, becoming almost unbearable. The light from the cell phone expanded, enveloping Matthew's entire body in a bluish cocoon. For a terrible moment, I thought he might be disintegrating, disappearing before our very eyes. But then I realized he was transforming. The adolescent face softened, the contours subtly changing, aging. The body under the funeral suit seemed to fill out, gain mass and height. It was like watching 15 years pass in a matter of minutes. time reclaiming its normal, accelerated course. And then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The humming fell silent, the light retracted into the cell phone before going out completely. The room returned to normal, lit only by the rising sunday. Matthew opened his eyes. They were no longer the eyes of a 17-year-old boy, but the eyes of a 32-year-old man, the age he would be now. His face had changed, matured, although it was still unmistakably him. His body had grown, making the funeral suit tight in the shoulders and short at the wrists. "Mom?" His voice was deeper, more resonant. "Dad?" We fell on him in a desperate hug, tears streaming freely. It was impossible. It was a miracle. It was our son, returned from the dead not as a ghost or a zombie, but as a living, whole man who seemed to have lived every one of the 15 years he had lost. How? It was all David managed to say, holding Matthew's face between his hands, examining him with awestruck eyes. Matthew smiled. An adult smile, with lines at the corners of his eyes that weren't there before. "It's complicated. I don't fully understand it myself." He tried to sit up, and we helped him, noticing how he moved with the caution of someone who hadn't used their body in a long time. "Time works differently. On the other side," he continued, "it's not linear like here. I lived many lives there. I learned things. I grew. When I realized there was a way back, that I could return if the conditions were right." He looked at the cell phone, now plain and ordinary in his hand. "This was the link, the connection I kept with this world, and you were the beacon that guided me back." "But how is this possible?" I asked, still unable to fully believe the miracle before me. "Your science doesn't have words for it yet," Matthew replied gently. "Parallel dimensions, maybe, or alternative states of consciousness. The important thing is that I'm here. I came back. Not exactly as I was, but..." He looked at his own hands, now larger, stronger, with small scars and calluses that weren't there before. "This body reflects the experiences I had there. The growth, the learning, as if I had lived these 15 years in another place." David, ever the pragmatist, was already thinking about the implications. "How are we going to explain this? Legally, you're dead. You don't exist in the system." Matthew smiled again. "We'll have time to sort that out. Patrick can help. Maybe a story about mistaken identity, amnesia, something like that. The important thing is that I'm back." His face suddenly turned serious. "But I'm not the only one who found the way. Others are trying to follow, as I warned. Not all with good intentions." "What can we do?" I asked. "For now, nothing. I closed the portal behind me as best I could, but we need to be vigilant." He looked out the window, at the world outside, a world he hadn't seen in 15 years. "So many things have changed. I have a lot to learn about this life again." In the days that followed, we watched in wonder as Matthew readjusted to life. His body functioned perfectly, although he sometimes seemed clumsy, as if he were learning to use long dormant muscles. His mind was sharp, absorbing information with impressive speed, adapting to the technological and social changes of the last 15 years. Patrick helped with the legal part, creating an elaborate story of mistaken identity and prolonged amnesia. It wasn't perfect, but with his connections and a bit of record manipulation, he managed to establish a new identity for Matthew, not as someone resurrected from the dead, but as someone who never really died. As for me, I went from a grieving mother to the mother of an adult son in a matter of days. It was strange, disorienting, wonderful. Matthew was no longer the boy I lost, but a complex man, with knowledge and skills that transcended his earthly education. Sometimes, I would find him looking toward the horizon with a distant expression, as if he were seeing things none of us could comprehend. In those moments, I realized that part of him was still connected to the other side, to the mysterious place where his consciousness had resided for 15 years. One night, sitting on the porch watching the stars, I asked him if he missed that place. Sometimes, he admitted. It was peaceful there, in a way. No physical limitations, no weight of linear time. But it was missing something essential. "What?" I asked. He smiled. That smile that was both familiar and new. "This. Humanity. Connection. the beauty of being alive, with all its imperfections and challenges. It's worth being here, even knowing that one day I'll have to leave again. I held his hand, larger, stronger, more callous than the hand of the boy I buried, but still, unmistakably the hand of my son. When that day comes, I'll be ready to let you go, I promised. This time, I'll know it's not goodbye for good. Matthew nodded, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of someone who had lived between worlds. It's never goodbye for good, Mom. Just see you later. I buried my son 15 years ago. I visited his grave religiously every Sunday. I kept his room intact as a shrine to his memory. And then, on an ordinary night, my phone rang with a call from the beyond. Today, he is sitting next to me, not as the boy I lost, but as the man he became on another plane of existence. Death, I learned, is not the end of the story. Sometimes, it's just the beginning of a new and extraordinary journey. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left you speechless. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't post here. I'll be waiting for you.